Reptiles, welcome back to my channel. So this week we are doing something that I am super excited about. We are going to do a budget bioactive build, and this is a build that would be used for something like a crested gecko, a smaller animal, because that is the tank that I have. Thank you so much to Ronnie Hughes for this idea. He mentioned it in the comments of a video a little while back, and I loved it. And we know that I love to save money, so here we are. Before we get started, I did want to make mention that this video is sponsored by the Dubia.com, so stay tuned until a little later and you can find out how to save 10% off at thedubia.com. Let's get into it. Alrighty, so starting off, we have the tank, topsoil, cypress mulch, and sphagnum moss. This tank is actually a very old tank that I've had for quite a while. It has been used by many different animals and being stored in my shed for the longest time. This is a 12 by 12 by 18, which is roughly 10 gallons from Exo Terra. And then the quest for finding the things to make cheap substrate began. First of all, I always use this topsoil because it is so cheap. Not only that, but it contains two of the crucial ingredients that you need to make a substrate for a terrarium: peat moss and sand, so that saves you money on not having to buy that. And this topsoil is only $2.25 at Lowe's. Next up is the cypress mulch. I searched everywhere that I could to find cheap cypress mulch. Now, I know that places like Home Depot and Lowe's sell super cheap cypress mulch, but I'm not sure if it's been treated or not, so I chose to stick on the safe side with this and just get the cypress mulch that is made for animals. Last up, sphagnum moss. Sphagnum moss is so much cheaper if you buy it from places like Lowe's and Home Depot as opposed to Petco and PetSmart. For a huge sleeve of sphagnum moss from Petco or even Repticon, it's usually like $12. I paid $5 for this, and this thing is going to last me forever. You can also do cocoa fiber if you want. I chose to skip that this time and just do topsoil as my main soil, and we will see how that works out. But then you're just going to mix everything together. A couple of differences I noticed while I mix all this stuff together: the cypress mulch, buying the cheaper one as opposed to the brand that I normally buy, this one has a lot more giant mulch chunks, which I picked around because it's a very small tank and giant chunks of wood in the bottom aren't gonna fit. So keep that in mind, as well as the sphagnum moss. This kind seemed to have a lot more little sticks and twigs in it than the kind you would buy at the pet store, and the pet store one also kind of seemed softer, so I actually had to add water to that mixture just to make sure that it was still wet. So this is kind of the consistency that we're looking for. So now that that's all done, you can set it aside, and we're going to start filling up this tank. I am going to use gravel for the drainage layer for this. Gravel is not the best drainage layer that you could possibly have, but it works and it is the cheapest. Walmart near me always has a clearance aisle where they'll put things, and that's where I found this little thing of rocks, and for some reason in my head I thought it was going to be enough, and it 100% was not. So I actually just ended up using some river rock, which Walmart again had on sale, and it was only $2.50 for a bag the size of that soil that you see in the background. So super cheap, and it does the job, and that is what we're going for in this, is bioactive on a budget. And then we are going to use a mesh screen to form the drainage barrier. Personally, my favorite thing to use is weed block, but mesh screen works good, and it's half the price of weed block. We ended up paying $6 and something for this mesh screen, again at Walmart. I always just like to make sure that when I use mesh screen, I put multiple layers so that you can really make sure that the soil isn't going to go down through that. Now, with the way that we are doing this is buying materials in bulk, because buying large quantities and making things on your own a lot of times is a lot less expensive than buying pre-made things in smaller quantities, if that makes sense. So with the amount that we can make from all these materials, the rocks, the weed block, you could build a fairly large bioactive tank with these materials. You would just have to add more plants. But before we do that, we have to put the substrate in, and we are just putting that substrate directly on that mesh barrier and making sure that none of it gets between that and the tank and down into the rocks. And we're just putting a pretty thick layer of this on here because this is where the plants are going to root. But next we are going to do the plants. The way that I did the plants, because plants are often very expensive, is I just go to places like Walmart or Lowe's, Home Depot, and a lot of times they will have a clearance section of plants, which basically a lot of times means that the people forgot to water them and they are now on sale. But that means you get them for cheap and you just got to take them home, and a little TLC, they are usually beaming. I got 4 plants and I only ended up having room for 3, spoiler alert. So we're going to just factor in the price of 3 plants, which is going to be the 2 ferns and the lucky bamboo. The catch to buying from these big box stores is that oftentimes they are treated with pesticides and fertilizers, and you don't want any of that in your tank. So you have to wash them off really good, and normally you would quarantine these plants for about 2 to 3 weeks before you let the animal into the tank with that plant, just to make sure that all of that stuff is off of there. I'm obviously not, because I'm not putting an animal in this tank. Anyways, now we are just placing our ornaments. Driftwood hardscaping ornaments. I often go to my local river to find those things. You get them for free and you get some awesome pieces, and yeah, I just prefer to do it that way. So we are going to factor in $0 for hardscaping, and then I just put in those 2 ferns and the bamboo. I absolutely am in love with that bamboo. The expensive part of Bioactive setups comes with the cleanup crew. At this point we are only at that much, and adding this cleanup crew is going to cost a little bit. Again though, this is going to be a cost that will last you for a very long time. We are talking about springtails. Springtails are about $17 for a jar at joshsfrogs.com, but once you buy one, you can culture it and have a whole bunch of different cultures of springtails and never run a springtails ever. So it is one big price, but it will pay off in the end. I'm also using night crawlers for this Bioactive setup. I've never used them before, but when looking over the cost of different aspects of cleanup crew, night crawlers are super cheap. I actually feed them to my Pac-Man frog and to my ropefish, and they're only about $4 or $5 for a jar. So super cheap, especially when compared to the others. Another wonderful thing that you can use as a cleanup crew is Dubia roaches. Dubia roaches not only help to turn the topsoil, but they also provide on-the-spot feeders for the animals. Speaking of Dubia roaches, this video is sponsored by thedubiadude.com. This is where I get most of my roaches from now. Thedubiadude.com is an awesome place to get roaches. He definitely has one of the, if not the easiest website to navigate. It just takes a couple clicks and you are there ordering your feeders. He takes such good care of these feeders as well. He feeds them all organic, and he does his best to reduce, reuse, and recycle materials while bringing you super healthy feeders for your animal. Dubia roaches are one of the healthiest bugs that you could feed your reptile. They are super high in protein, higher than crickets. They don't smell bad. They don't make noise. They're not going to escape into your house and chirp in your walls. They are hands down the best feeder in my opinion. If you want to save 10% off of your entire order at thedubiadude.com, don't forget to use code L and you can do just that. Saving money on feeders that get delivered directly to your house. It's a win-win situation. Thank you so much to the Dubia Dude for sponsoring this video. And to kickstart our springtail colony in this tank, I'm going to put just a couple grains of rice in the tank. This just kind of makes some bacteria start to grow so your springtail culture can grow. I also use Spring to Life by Josh's Frogs, but that is definitely not a necessity. You can use just a couple grains of rice and you're good to go. And on top of that, I make sure to put a lot of sphagnum moss. This is going to keep the humidity up in your tank and also provide cover for your cleanup crew. And leaf litter does basically the same thing, but it also decomposes for your cleanup crew to consume. This is not the leaf litter that I ordered. This is just some that I had laying around because my leaf litter was supposed to be here today with the rest of the stuff, and it is not going to be here until Sunday now. So we're just going to put the price for the leaf litter that I ordered. I don't know if I'm supposed to include like food bowls and stuff in this. This is a little ledge that I got from Wish like forever ago, and I paid $2 for it and I've never got a chance to use it. So I stuck that in there, and then I also got this little dish on sale at Walmart for 98 cents. But we are not going to factor in cost of food dishes because you can also just use bottle caps. I love using like juice caps, milk lids, things like that because they are free, they're disposable, and basically everyone has them. So we are going to factor in nothing for that because like I said, you you could do this for free. Also, just realized I don't think I ever factor it in the price of the tank itself. This tank was secondhand off of like Craigslist or something, and I have no idea how much I paid for it. But you can also get a 10-gallon tank from Petco, the dollar per gallon sale, for $10, and with a screen lid and everything, we'll say about 20 bucks for the tank. Lights. This is the cheapest grow light that I could find that didn't need a dome or anything like that, because that would have been even more money. This was $15.99 on Amazon, and it's actually really cool. I really like how this one looks. This is the first time I've ever used it, so hopefully it actually grows plants, but it comes with a really cool little clamp system that you can clamp onto the shelving system if you have one of those, or just somewhere nearby, which I thought was awesome. You could even clamp it onto the tank itself if you didn't have a lid on your tank, if you were just growing plants. But I was very pleased with how this whole setup came out. I do not plan on putting an animal in there. I know someone's gonna ask. I don't have any plans for an animal in there yet, but who knows? But that's how this came out. And that's about it, guys. Everything turned out wonderfully. I'm super happy with it all, except for my leaf litter. That is not here, but that is okay. I am very happy with how this turned out. It wasn't as cheap as I was hoping to get it, but that cleanup crew is kind of expensive. So this entire tank ended up costing less than $100. And just a reminder, I always link everything that I use in my videos in the description. So if you are curious about that, I will leave all that information there. So I went to Josh's Frogs and added almost everything that I used in this build to my cart. They actually have a complete Bioactive setup kit on their site, and then I just added some more sphagnum moss and driftwood on top of that just to see how much it'd come out to be. And it was actually $200 plus an additional $26 to ship it to my house. So this saved us at least half of that, and we're going to have materials to make multiple tanks with this. If you guys have any tips or tricks for building inexpensive bioactive setups, don't forget to leave them down in the comments below. It could help someone else, or it could help me in the future to save some money while setting these things up. Honestly, the most expensive part to all of this is the cleanup crew, so if you have any tips for those or getting those cheaper or anything like that, definitely leave that below. But yeah, if you're not ready, please don't forget to follow me on my other socials and like, subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications every single time I put out a new video, which is every Sunday and Wednesday. Huge thank yous and shout outs to Terrell Cameron and Martin Exotics for following me on Instagram, going through like a whole bunch of stuff. Thank you guys so much. You are the bee's knees. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Bye. If you guys have any tips or tricks, or tricks for building and that's about it, guys.